All right, one of the most popular features on my Instagram has always been when I take questions. And they tend to be funny and interesting and occasionally in depth. And since one of the reasons I'm moving to YouTube, a lot of my operations to YouTube, is because I hate that little 15-second crap. I'd much rather be able to give a thoughtful response than to type something out really quick. It's just very throwaway. So I'm going to take some questions here, and I already took the questions on Instagram, but in the comments here, you can leave questions, and then in a week or two, I'll do this again, and then I'll answer people's questions in long form. You can ask me anything. If you ask me something personal, I'll probably delete it. I don't really do that. So anyway, let's get started. Let's see what the first question is. This is something that I get asked a lot, and it's how do you balance jiu-jitsu with your gym days? And my answer is I've been working out for 15, 20 years, and I do it by feel. Honestly, I don't have a specific program. Everyone wants a specific program. They want people to tell them what to do. If I feel like my chest is recovered, then I guess it's chest day. I can do jiu-jitsu, and especially, now that I'm, a purple belt, I've been a purple belt for a few years, and I don't always get as exhausted as maybe I did when I was a white belt. When you're just like, the whole time. I, use strength more judiciously. I mean, I still use a lot of strength, but I use it a little bit more judiciously, and my body's used to doing it. So I can work out and do jiu-jitsu on the same day. Whereas maybe someone who's just starting out in jiu-jitsu might feel a little bit more beat up than I do. So the thing is, there's a time issue. And, by the time I take a shower, drive to jiu-jitsu, which is really close, and then I'm there for an hour and a half, then come home and chill out. Okay, we've killed like 2.5 hours. So if I do the same thing, get ready, go to the gym, drive there, work out for an hour, come back. Okay, now it means I'm not doing anything. I'm just training for 4 hours a day, which would be cool. But I need to do things like this, things that in some way contribute to me making a living, because I am not independently wealthy. So I try to, as much as I'd like to just train all day, that doesn't seem like the best option because I'm not a personal trainer. Anyway, so that's my answer to that question. I do it by feel, by how, what feels recovered and what doesn't. And, just kind of rotate things in a system based on that, and just, based on what I'm trying to do that day. So it's very organic. So I get that. I've gotten that question like twice this week. So I figured I'd answer that first. The next question was interesting. It said that the internet has been going crazy over debate about 100 men versus one gorilla. What does this reveal about the state of men right now? Is this a symptom of a peaceful life? And I did see something about this. I don't really care about it. I didn't follow it. But the internet goes crazy over something new like every other day. That's what its function is, to keep people busy. And the thing you need to understand about internet culture, I don't think that actually speaks to anything about the state of man or whatever. What goes viral, what goes crazy, all these little trends that happen on Instagram and X and all these platforms, these trends like that, they're giving people something to do when they're bored. I always try to remember that people who are on the internet are usually bored. Sometimes they're looking for something, they're trying to find information, they're doing research, they're learning something. That's cool. Sometimes they're watching some kind of legitimate entertainment. But most of the time they're bored. Like when I get a really rude comment on something, I like to picture that person standing in line at the DMV. Because that's when people are doing a lot of this stuff. They're talking about, can a man fight 100 men versus one gorilla? Could it work? mean, that's a nonsense conversation, but it's something to entertain you while you are in line at the DMV, in line at the bank, waiting at the doctor's office, waiting at the grocery store, whatever. While you're sitting at work, like even my men's group, the Order of Fire, it's a lot busier during the workday. I'm just saying. There's a lot more people talking during the workday because why? People are bored at work. Their jobs are boring. They're waiting for someone to do something, someone to file a TPS report, and they're bored. So that's my answer. People on the internet, when they're on the internet, they're bored. And I don't think that speaks to really anything about where we are culturally. So that's my answer to that question. I'm going to try and post little things of these questions up here so we have some reference on the side. But favorite movies or series? I'm gonna take a pivot on this one because we do this all day. But I had someone comment a couple days ago that they were surprised that I watched TV because I said I watched 1923 and God damn it, that was a beautiful love story. It really was. But they were surprised that I watched TV. And there's this, I think it's a Generation X thing where, there are people, it became like this hipster thing. And, Generation X, I think specifically, be like, well, I don't watch TV. I don't even own TV. Now, literally, that's a lie to everyone now because this is a TV. But there's this idea of TV, like boob tube is what they used to call it, that TV is for dumb people or uncultured people, or it's to hypnotize you or any of those things. And the reality is that like YouTube is TV. Is it not? I can watch it on my TV. So you're talking about you don't. Well, you're surprised that I watched video. Okay. Like it used to be that films were like the art form, and then TV was, like I Love Lucy, and or like Everybody Loves Raymond, or just some just garbage. Something to watch for bored people. Again, bored people. But that's not what is on Netflix or HBO or whatever. I mean, there is a lot of garbage on there. Absolutely, there is. There are a lot of sitcoms and stupid, trashy documentaries and fake documentaries and all kinds of things. But I'm going to say that the long form television series, if it's even called television anymore, the long form series is possibly one of the higher art forms of our time. Because, okay, you go to see, most 3-hour movies are trash. 2-3 hour movie, you go to see it, and they're like recycled hits. They're like, I don't know, Dukes of Hazzard 5 or whatever, like another Spider-Man movie. They're recycled concepts over and over. Ghostbusters, all these things over and over again. They just remake the same things because it's such a big risk. Let's say, what are we going to throw whatever $500 million at? Well, I guess it's something that we already know is going to make money, right? That's how they do it. So they don't really take risks with it. But in contrast, you look at some of these long form series, and rather than you have this blockbuster where a lot of things blow up and nothing really happens, just like ultra violence or whatever, you have a plot that gets to unfold like a novel over hours and hours and hours and weeks. I don't know. That's like a symphony. That it's so. I think it's kind of odd to put that down. I think it's some of the best writing of our time and the best filmmaking. I mean, like I said, I was watching 1923, and a lot of people, the television series is kind of their relationship thing. A lot of people who are in any kind of long-time relationship, they pick a show, and when they have time to hang out, they watch that show together. And that's the way it is in my house. That's the way it is. Like a lot of the guys in my group, they do that with their wives. They pick a show with their wives and they watch that, and that's what they talk about, and that's what they have in common. So that keeps kind of the relationship together. So I think it serves a good purpose in that sense. But man, there's so many good long form series. I just re-looked at Rome recently. Deadwood, amazing. I loved Game of Thrones. You knew what the themes they were working in were, but I'm gonna watch some Dragons and Knights. That's right. So many fantastic long form things where plots just unfold, and motifs come in and out and back and around. I think it's just some of the best writing out there. We just right before 923 we were watching Landman, which I'm not a huge Billy Bob Thornton fan, but he did a good job. It was a good show. So yeah, I think there are a lot of great series. The original one that was super high level was Sopranos, which I watched the whole thing of Sopranos. So it's just so much good writing. And they've just become cultural icons and touch points into themselves. So I don't understand the hate on television. Obviously, there's some garbage and some not garbage out there, just like anything else. So let's look at some more of these questions here. Okay, how do you explain to a man that manliness still matters in the modern world? Why be a man? Why care about manliness in this world where everything is taken care of for you and you really can just be a little baby? There's one reason is you don't know that that's going to last. I hate to be the guy selling apocalypse, because apocalypse guys always have to make it like the apocalypse is going to happen tomorrow, so that they can sell you preparedness for the apocalypse. It's kind of its own grift, really. But things happen. The example I used to like to use is that Ukraine was a very modernized country that's now been at war for like many years, and I bet someone told them that they didn't need masculinity anymore. So who knows what the future holds? I don't like to predict apocalypse type scenarios or wars or whatever, but we don't know. And I can tell you that women won't be worth anything. They'll in hard times, it comes down to men. Women are used to being protected. If you want to question that, look at their awareness in public. Women expect people to get out of the way for them. And no one knows this more than someone who's worked like a blue collar job or a customer service job, behind the scenes kind of thing. If you're coming through pushing a cart, men will get out of the way because they understand what that is. And women will just be oblivious to things that are happening because they've been protected all their lives. American women are extremely protected, and they just are, their situational awareness is really low in most cases. Not everybody's different, but on a big curve, yes. They would not be great and a lot of them won't be that great in an emergency, let alone like a wartime scenario, which is why they're fixing that in the military now, because that's not what they're for. When men and women are different, and that's okay, but just don't ask them to be men. But getting back to why is manliness important in the modern world, how do you explain that to a man? Now, explaining that to a woman is a different project, but explaining why masculinity is important to a man, the first question I would ask him, well, what else are you going to be aside from a man? Are you just going to be a bad woman, like an ugly woman? Because you are a man, you were born as a man, and I wonder how much of the trans thing is men just being told that masculinity is toxic for so long that they're like, well, I don't want to be one. Then I think it's a possibility that there's some influence there. But regardless, if you are, you're born XY, you have a penis, you are a man. I don't like to say you're not a man if you don't do this, you're not a man if you don't do that, because then we get into a mess of cultural rules that contradict each other, and that's really where gender theory gets its like hooks in, because they're like, look, it's all a contradiction. Oh, it's not really. It's only when you get down into the little like petty little rules of masculinity that becomes a contradiction. As I wrote in The Way of Men, have men always cared about strength, courage, mastery, and honor in every culture, always, for all time? Yes. What has the role of men been in most cultures? Pretty much the same. So masculinity, why does masculinity matter in the modern world? Man, I think that, I always love to use the phrase, become what you are. And you are a man, so you can become better at that or worse at it. And does it mean that you need to go and start fights with everybody? No, that's a bad idea. Does it mean that you need to go out of your way to like do something that's really far out of your wheelhouse? Probably not. But there's a certain part of you that is missing unless you explore some of these things that are part of being a man. I always used because I do jiu-jitsu, I always use and I did some MMA stuff before that. I always watch men spar for the first time. It's scary, but it's also like dogs wagging their tails. Like they were designed to do this thing. And they have a lot of fun doing it. And, we have a gratefulness practice at our jiu-jitsu gym that I go to now, Ethos. And when men go around the room, invariably, there's always someone in the room every day who says, I didn't want to come here today. I was tired, whatever. But this is the only place where like everything else goes away. And I just do this thing. People get into a flow state when they're, doing a combat sport. It's a beautiful thing. And I think that if you haven't experienced that at all, as a man, you're missing something. Doesn't mean you have to do it for the rest of your life. It doesn't mean that you have to do it constantly. It doesn't mean you have to go take an MMA fight or whatever. But you should experience that and understand what it is. And it will make everything you read about men doing things like that in the past make more sense. And I think that's very important. So, and I think it's exploring what it means to be a man and what it is always meant to be a man is just important for you. It's important for your own masculine psychology. And, I can talk forever about The Way of Men and the ideas in that. But, I always say the way of men is the way of the gang. Men are nervous unless they have proven themselves within groups of men. Unless they have the respect of other men, they become nervous, they become dependent on women, they can become dependent on society, they become childlike. And I think that working to impress another group of men, now it doesn't have to be the same group of men. I'm not going to impress, I have with writing, but I'm not going to go out and hang out with operators and impress them with shooting. We all have different roles, and we all have different things to do with different dharmas. But there's more to you than just, looking through social media or doing some job, some customer service job or whatever. Discovering what it feels like to be strong. That's amazing. I never thought of myself as a strong guy until my late 30s. I started lifting. And I just became an entirely different person. Just strength is part of my identity, and I guess someday it won't be, but it has been for several years. And I'm a pretty strong guy, and I didn't know that until I put myself through the crucible of doing some powerlifting, doing some heavy lifting, doing some bodybuilding, things like that. What are you capable of? You don't know until you've done those things. I was just talking about this with a friend of mine, and some of the guys in the Order of Fire. And you don't have to do every single thing forever or for a long time, but it's good to have some of these experiences, like we were talking about running versus, say, powerlifting. And running, like that runner's high. My friend C.B. Robertson was actually talking about the runner's high and how it's just a very different experience from, say, lifting or something else. And I was like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. If you've run more than a few miles, once you break that like 2 or 3 miles, like you're either going to have a runner's high or you're going to stop. There's an experience that you have from running. And, people run more, it takes longer to get there or whatever, but that's worth having. That's something that men have always done. So, when someone asks me why is masculinity important for a young man or whatever, you don't know who you are until you've explored that part of yourself. And it's really easy if you want to just hang out with women who will affirm you and say you're just amazing for whatever, and pat you on the back for whatever it is you do, and you never have to impress men. That's kind of living like a baby, living in that world, because you're missing something. So you need to go find that. It doesn't matter if the world needs it, because you know what? You're not a fucking slave. I'm not a slave. I'm not worried if the world needs me to be a man. I'm a man, period. So I'm here to be me, not wonder what the New York Times says I'm supposed to be. Fuck them. Who cares? Let's see, the next question. How to boost or upgrade my gameness? This is a short one. The word gameness just means like ready to enter the fray. It came from a book that I read many years ago about fighting, and it was actually talking about dogs. They judge fighting dogs by gameness, like how much they're just like ready to go. And so this person's asking me, how do I upgrade my gameness? And the best answer I have for that is that you become more courageous when you put yourself in more situations that you're afraid of and overcome them. So if there's things that you're afraid of doing, whether it's, talking to strangers or sparring or whatever, the more you do it, the less you're afraid you're going to be of it. Like something bad could always happen. But, the more you do it, the less you'll be worried about things. You're more confident you'll be. There are bad sides to anything, but that's how you would become, I think, more game, more courageous, more willing to take risks, more ready to jump into things. So that's my answer to that one. Okay, so I have 2 questions about Christianity and the church that I'm going to get into now. The first one, someone asked me, what are my opinions about Christianity? And that's like obviously you haven't looked into my work that deeply if you don't already know that. But I'm not a Christian. I don't believe that. Someone phrased it to me one time. I believe that Jesus Christ is who he said he was, and I do not believe that. That seems absurd to me. It's not even. I'm not even willing to take arguments on it. It's not, and it's not that I feel like I know something else is true, but I feel confident that is not true. I just don't believe it. And no more than I believe in any other God or religion that man, I think, created. I think all religions are created by man, which is the thesis of my book, Fire in the Dark. And so if we don't like the religions we have, we should create one that we want. And I did. It's called solar idealism. Man can just do things. Anyway, Uh, Generally speaking, I have a lot of friends and supporters and readers who are Christian. I think when men are raised with Christianity, and here's the rub, because I understand masculinity. If you're raised by a good father figure, a strong father figure who you admire, and he's a Christian, the right way of the world probably is for you to believe what your father believed. I mean, that's patriarchy. Your father believed that, so you believe that too. That's you're following after your father. That makes a lot of sense historically, and it makes a lot of sense in the world. And I can't really blame men for doing that. And when that's the case, they're usually a lot more well-adjusted. I'm much more suspicious of converts. If you're 25 years old and you just automatically decide that it's a good idea to become Christian, I'm like, oh, you started believing in something that you didn't believe in before. Now I find that hard to believe. There's a lot of people who switch to Christianity, and this feeds into the next question. There's a lot of people who switch to Christianity for tactical reasons. And that's happening a lot now. I haven't read it myself. I should. But my friend C.B. Robertson wrote a book called Holy Nihilism, and I think it's to address that problem. Because we see that, especially on the right, is you see a lot of guys who are looking for somewhere to fit in, and they're looking for some meaning in life, because the crisis of the postmodern world is that there's a crisis of meaning. And so they're looking for meaning, and Christianity says it gives them the meaning. It's the most popular religion in America, although if you broke it into pieces, it certainly, that's a different discussion. But Christianity is the most popular. It is the dominant religion in our region. And, if you say you believe that, you're going to have a lot of friends, or fake friends, but you're going to have a lot of people who are in a network. There's a lot of big networks. There's a lot of networking in Christianity. Anyone who says there isn't a lot of money in Christianity is lying. I've watched a huge flood of influencers come in. No one wanted to admit they were Christian like 15 years ago. And now everyone wants to put a cross on everything they're doing, because there's Jesus money out there. And I do think that is a cynical look at it, but that's what I see happening. And there's a lot of people who were coaches and then they became Christian coaches. And then they can kind of sell you the problem and the solution at the same time. And so that's how I feel about that and what's happening. And then the next question that someone asked me was, what do you think is going to happen to all these people flocking to Christianity when they are disappointed and it's not what they want it to be? Because it isn't. I would say that Nietzsche had said everything about Christianity that needs to be said. I'm not going to be a new atheist, Christopher Hitchens, whatever. I'm not going to be one of these new atheist type people, Richard Dawkins, all those people who have to argue with you that you have to stop believing in God or any of that. I don't believe that that's. I think animals, the human animal, is a religious creature. So the idea that having no religion is actually weird. So it's just a matter of which religion and why. And definitely it's a hard no for me on Christianity in terms of, because I see it as very subservient. And they say I'm a slave for Christ. And there's a lot of just subservient language. I wrote a piece that deals with it. My last piece on Substack actually dealt with Christianity and what is the word? It means to go down towards the ground. Humility. Yeah, I liked the word humility before I really understood the context it has in Christianity. And now I realize why a lot of former Christians don't like it. It basically means shut up and you do what I say and bow down, and you're nothing. There's a lot of you're nothing. You're a slave. You're a wretch. You're a sinner. You're bad. You're just original sin. I don't. there's a lot of religions that haven't been like that, and I would not choose of my own free will a religion in which I am a piece of garbage and started out that way, but somehow God loves me as well. It's kind of a mess. I don't really. Anyway, that's my opinion on Christianity. You can like it or not like it. I don't care. But the question is, what's going to happen after people realize it's not what they want to be? Because they see it online, and there's all these jack to Jesus like things like Jesus wants you to like bench press whatever, and that's not what Christianity is. Jesus wants you to wash the feet of homeless people. There's no BJ. There's 5 or 6 good lines. Oh, you're going to flip some tables and bring the sword, and there's 5 good high test lines in the New Testament, and these guys bring up every single one of them. But that's not what the whole thing is about. And they want to fit it into who they want to be, but that's not what it describes. They have to cherry pick that out of it. And so a lot of them, as they study it, they're as they're being, oh, I'm going to be a Christian. And so many people are doing it as a form of rebellion, which I actually considered Satanism. If you're becoming a Christian to say Christ is king just because you don't like purple-haired lesbians and wokeness, that's not a really good. That's a false Christian. You're taking their cross and inverting it. That's why I call it Satanism. You just want to do the opposite thing of what they're doing. And that is not a valid Christian. That's inverting something. That's an inversion. That's Satanism. People are joining it to do that. And I think they'll realize that there isn't a lot of, you have to go back to the Crusades and countries, and they were just countries run by kings doing conquering shit. It's not of Christianity. It's just stuff that men do and stuff that continued under Christianity. People didn't do people did plenty of war making before the Crusades, right? Before they conquered the Americas, all that. They did it under other religions. It's just what men do. So, yeah, I think that a lot of people will realize that. And unfortunately, what happens, it depends how bad their experience is, because there are a lot of people who have really bad experiences with organized religion. And I hate organized religion because it seems like religion should be disorganized, which is not good either. But a lot of people have very negative experiences with it, whether it's people who get molested in churches, in Bible camps, all kinds of stuff. I mean, that's something that happens. Not obviously it doesn't happen to all of them, but there is some predatory stuff. There are people who just want your money. There are people who are once these guys who come in for the Jesus wants you to deadlift actually show up at a church and start saying they're the bride of Christ and the slave for Christ and all that stuff. Maybe they're going to reevaluate what they're doing. Because it's not what they've been sold by the memes. It's not what the memes say it is. And obviously there's a lot of people converted to Catholicism right now, but the popes have been globalist pawns for a long, long time. So, and before they were globalist pawns, they were going up to other weird things, and then you go back to the Medici's and that whole period, which is really fascinating. And the popes were basically just whoremasters. And corrupt in every way. So, I mean, there's just a long history of corruption in that. So I don't know why you would assume it was going to be different now. But it is what it is, and they'll figure it out. But yeah, if they have a really negative experience, they're gonna be nihilistic, and they're going to give up on meaning, and they're going to, there are a lot of people who are like Jehovah's Witness or Mormons who just become Satanists because they're just so angry, and that's not the way either. That's not the way either. And that's why I created Solar Idealism and the Order of Fire. Like, hey, can we do this in a positive way, but not lie to ourselves? And that's our project. And so we've been working on that. That's my soft plug for my small but very cool men's organization, the Order of Fire and the First Men. That's my real priority. That's the guy that I talk to all the time. And we're trying to live masculine, virtuous lives without all the baggage that comes with organized religion, the existing organized religions. Because I guess we have to be organized, right? So anyway, hopefully they'll find their way out of it and not just become nihilists and Satanists, because that's a bad point either. And pivoting from nihilism, one of the other questions was, a reader is reading Thus Spake Zarathustra, and there's the story of the lion and I believe the camel and the baby, and the three transformations, I think it's called, and a dragon is mentioned. And he has obviously heard or read my piece about the dragon of negation that we talk about in Solar Idealism and the Order of Fire. And he asked if the dragon of negation is the same as Nietzsche's dragon. And I said there's some overlap there, but no. The dragon in Nietzsche is in Thus Spake Zarathustra. The dragon there is symbolizing existing values, trying to maintain their authority. Whether it's an organized religion, whether it's a government, whatever, it's an existing set of values that he talks about as being thou shalt, all the things that you must do, and the people who question them must become lions to overcome that. Because a lot of what Nietzsche is talking about is how to be a philosopher, not necessarily how to live your life, but how to be a philosopher. And to be a philosopher, you have to question all the thou shalt, and you have to be a lion unto them. And then eventually you become a baby and become playful. But anyway, so in the Dragon of Negation is, I think, more what dragons have always symbolized, which is the draw to death, the void. The Dragon of Negation, the idea, I named him Negation because that's what he really represents, is non-differentiation. When you return to dust, and it's the whisper of that makes you do self-destructive things, makes people want to forget their identity and just slip into a crowd, that and just disappear into it, which is really the impulse behind communism and some religions as well. I think Buddhism actually has a lot of self-negation, self-negating qualities in it, or functionally, or spoken of, or whatever. I think Nietzsche obviously thought that Christianity was one of them, in its terms of, your heaven is after you die. So it is, in a sense, it's a kind of death worship, because everything good is supposed to happen. The best stuff is supposed to happen after you're dead. Whereas I would advise people to, that's a big gamble. I would say do the best things you can while you're alive, and live the best life you can while you're alive, and make an impact while you're here, and have great experiences and do the things there, because you're not really guaranteed that afterlife, Universal Studios afterlife that they're advertising. No one really knows that that's there. Not a single person knows that that's there. So that's a big gamble. All right. Someone said, asked me that they're reading Man in High Castle. How do you think our world would be if Hitler won World War II? And my answer to that is I have no idea. I think there are too many variables there. There's this big thing now that people are unpacking World War II, since almost everybody who was involved is dead. Now everybody's unpacking it. It's becoming history. So the narrative about it is going to change a lot over the next 50 years, because as something goes away from being in living memory, where people have very strong emotions about it, it'll move into being, well, what actually happened? Who was really the bad guy, or were they all bad guys, or whatever? And the narrative will start to change about that. It won't be the worst thing that ever happened. It'll just be another war, over time. So that's how I think would happen there. But would our world be different? I mean, immeasurably so. But there's so many different ways that it could be different. So it's just hard to tell. Let's see, what else are other questions we have here? I always get a question like this: how to start being masculine? And I'm like, unless you're a woman, you're already somewhat masculine because you can't not be. And then, that's why I wrote The Way of Men. What is masculinity? How do you emulate those qualities? What are you lacking in? Well, go fix that. If you're weak, go get stronger. If you're afraid of everything, you have to go deal with that. Do some things you're afraid of and start overcoming things. That's the way. And then there's other things in the way that people speak. Men who spend too much time around women sometimes pick up their vocal patterns and their head voice. People say like gay voice. Gay voice is really head voice. People don't really realize that. They think it's just some magic thing. And how can you change your voice or whatever? But like I don't have to do a fake voice. Like I can go all the way to Maximus, and have that voice, and that's still my voice. That's still part of it. And then there's all you have to do is if you start talking like a more effeminate man, we'll start talking up here. You start talking up here, and everything, and it gets all in your head. It's all your voice is happening up here, whereas a masculine voice is more in your chest or your stomach. And singers talk about this. They know about where your head voice is and your lower voice, and it's not about a fake voice. It's not like a falsetto or like a fake. I mean, that would be my fake low voice. I don't talk like that. But in between, there's something that's normal. That's just a normal masculine voice, and learning to not talk in your head voice is a big thing. It changes your voice without really doing anything that's unnatural. It's about where you put it. So that's an interesting thing. I could probably make a ton of money coaching people how to do that. Maybe that's my secret. I need to be like a vocal coach to make people not talk all gay. Yeah. Oh well. Doesn't sound like a cool job. It just sounds like a job where I can make money. And let's see, is there anything else in here? I think that's the last relevant question we have. I mean, someone asked me about, if I could invite 4 people to a dinner party and something like that. I mean, like, when was the last time I hosted a dinner party? Like, dinner party is not my scenario in which people meet and hang out. So I don't really have any fantasies about dinner guests. I mean, that sounds like a setup for a plot for a movie, or a setup for a plot of far wealthier, more well-to-do people than I obviously am. So, but that was about 45 minutes. And like I said, I'm willing to do this more often. I can do it every few weeks. So if you guys have some questions for me, I would be willing to answer them. I'd like, this is easy to do. I can just sit down and talk and answer questions. Q&As are fun. Coming up with things to say from scratch is a lot harder. But I've been talking about this stuff for a long time. So if you ask me a question, I probably have an answer. It might not be the right answer. It might not be your answer. But I have an answer to that. So if you have some things that you would like me to talk about or write about, I encourage you to put them in the comments. And I guess this is where I say that you should also like and subscribe. So I'm Jack Donovan. Stay solar.